Hi, J Baba, everybody. How's everyone doing? Well, we're super excited. Well, I'm very excited. I don't know about you guys, but we have the beautiful Michelle McKeever, and we're actually sitting here with Jordan Raffo as well. So we've got lots of young Baba love. So I sent out an email just to give you guys a little bit about Michelle, but I'll introduce her. So Michelle is one of she's like a Baba sister. She's not even really a friend. A Baba sister. Her and I, so she was actually my first counselor at the Sahavas. No, not my first. It was my second year. You're my counselor.
Yeah, because you were already like too cool and like
yeah, right. I didn't want to hang out with her. But then later, so then I was one of her worker wallas, which I'll go into what she does at the Sahavas. But and then her and I started a podcast together called God in the Real World, which is a Baba-based podcast. It's available on Spotify and all platforms. Spotify, Apple, Anchor.
Sorry, my cat is scratching up. You're gonna see her in a second.
So I had originally said that Mehera Blum was going to come on this week, but I actually leave for India tomorrow. And I realized that I was going to be with Michelle in person in DC because I'm staying with her for a night before I fly out. So I thought, what better than to do the interview in person with her? So Michelle is a longtime Baba lover. She's heavily involved in the Sahavas. And as I said in the email, so she'll tell her Baba story, but the Sahavas is where that started. Her Baba connection started, and her reverence for the event and her passion in the event has shaped it throughout the years and made such an impact. She's the coordinator of the worker wallas, which are really like the bread and butter of what makes the event happen. You're also on the board, yeah?
On like the committee for the Sahavas.
She's on the committee. She's got all the influence. In the real world, she owns a energy healing practice as well as an educator, which she can tell you more about that. But she works with all kinds of kiddos and is a mentor and friend and really just exudes empathy. So I'll stop talking. I will let Michelle tell her a little bit about her in the world and then her Baba story. And then you guys can ask any questions that you have. Michelle, take it away.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to see some faces that I recognize and some new faces as well. Michelle, you can see like Jordan's ear over here. He doesn't really want to be on camera, so we're respecting that. But I'm really happy that Margi asked me to come and chat. So as she was saying, in the real world, I am an educator. I work at a pre-K through 12 private school in DC called Georgetown Day School, and I feel like it's exactly what Baba has called me to do. It's like I get to live the Sahavas every day in the work that I do because I work in our Office of Community Engagement and Experiential Learning, which is all direct service work out into the DC community and beyond. So I'm very lucky in that regard. And should I just dive into my story and just talk about it? So I did not grow up in a Baba family. I'm 30 now. So when I was 15, so I've had Baba half my life. That's actually kind of cool. I feel like this is like, I just turned 30. So this is like officially, he's been in my life for half my life. Well, he's been in it, all of it, but formally in my consciousness. So when when I was 13, I started to go see a counselor and an energy healer who was helping support me through some like a particularly like traumatic event that had happened with my mom. She's fine now. You might know her. Cindy James is my mom. She's on BabaZooms and does stuff a lot. We started going to see a counselor who I learned later was a Baba lover, but I like to tell that story because it's just like Baba was always there. And then when I was 15, through this counselor, we had heard about the Baba Center, and so we were doing college tours for me and like looking at different colleges. And so myself and my parents and my 3 younger siblings were all in a minivan driving up and down the East Coast, and we were in Richmond, Virginia. And my mom said, we should just go down to this place I've heard in South Carolina. Like, we're already down this direction. And any of you know, like, the geography of like the East Coast, like that is like another like 6-hour drive. Like, it is not close. And so we were all like, yeah, like not really like really thinking about it. And then end up like on this like journey down to stay for one night at the Baba Center, not knowing. My mom had heard a little bit about Baba, and she's always been like a seeker her whole life. We did not know anything about Baba, but I was just like going along for the ride. That is my mom. And so we got to the center. I remember like checking in, and like Judy was checking us in at the center at the front, the gateway, and going on. We stayed in the twin cabin. Again, really knew nothing. We got a little tour the next day, and then I was a moody teen, you could say. So I decided to go on what I like to call my angst walks. So I went on one of my angsty walks around on the trails, and I put in my headphones and I was listening to like artists like who nobody listens to, like
Jesse McCartney
and like Avril Lavigne and like Ashley Simpson, like very much like teens of that, of like the like early 2000s like range. And I'm walking around like listening to my angsty music, but I remember just feeling so comfortable, like, and it was so beautiful just to like explore around the center. And then we left. And I don't remember this in my like consciousness, but I believe it to be true. Like I like cried when we left. I was like, that felt, we were there for maybe 12 hours. And I cried just being like, that was just so nice. Like, that was so nice. But again, the moody teen, angsty teen came into play. I wanted nothing to do with Baba. Wanted nothing to do with it. My mom was into it. So that was a no for me. Like, absolutely not. And she had heard about the youth Sahavas. And so that summer, she, at the time I said, forced me, now I would say maybe encouraged me and my sibling Kevin, who's 2 years younger than me, to go to the youth Sahavas. I was then like a senior in high school. Maybe this is 2 summers later. I was a senior in high school. Still only knew about Baba what I knew from that trip, like where we went for the one day. Had no interest in going to my honest assessment of the cult camp that she was sending me to. Like, that's just really, really, truly what I thought. Like, I had no idea. I mean, parts of my Baba story are irreverent, but that's also my relationship with Baba. So I'm telling you that now. I'm not putting on airs to try and pretend I'm like more devout than I am. At that time, I was like, no way. But we got on a plane to Myrtle Beach, and I'm just going to tell it because I feel like you guys will enjoy this part of the story. I had snuck out with my cousin the night before. I didn't drink in high school, but we had gotten drunk. So I was hungover for the first time in my entire life on the plane to go to the youth Sahavas. Why? I forgot about that until just now. Like, that has never been a part of my story before. So you all get the really special piece. And like, I'm really, like, anybody can attest, I don't drink now. Like, I'm not a partier, like, but something about Baba, I was going full teenage moody mode. And I got there and I felt uncomfortable. Like, I was a senior. So all the kids had known each other for 4 years at this point. And I went in and I was staying in the guest house. And everybody was really nice, but I was like, why am I here? What's going, like, what is this? Like, my mom said this would just be like a regular camp, but like people are like saying prayers. Like, I was like a little confused. And so I now like laugh at myself because I was definitely one of the kids we now talk about at the youth Sahavas who are like stay in their room and don't do much. Like, we always like meet and make sure they're doing okay and at least coming out for meals. Like, I was that kid. And now I realize like a lot of the counselors who I'm now friends with were definitely checking on me a lot. But I would call my mom. I was staying in Dr. Gohair's room. I would call my mom and I would tell her what a terrible mom she was from that room. I was like, this is like the worst place in the world. But at the same time, Baba was starting to melt me. Like, it was just happening. And I made friends. My roommate was Jaya Foley, who her sister is now married to my brother, Kevin. So it's like this whole family connection. But Jaya also slept with her eyes open, which was like another tick on the, like, this is the weirdest place in the world I've ever been. She always sleeps with them a little open. I love her. Sorry, this is my like really like comedic timing story. Anyway, and so Baba started to melt me. And by the last night, I started to spend more time in the art tent. I made like one friend who I felt really close with, Jyoti Siegel, and Kalyani, her sister, really took us under their wing, my brother and I. And on the last night at the barn, when we go and we give darshan at the barn, it was like the first evening program I really let myself be a part of. And I just wept. Like, I remember very clearly, they were playing Buzz's song Tonight, and my brother Kevin and I were sitting next to each other, and we both just sobbed. Like, both of us who had been having this tough time, not wanting to be there, really struggling, just like, we're like, how can we leave this place? Like, really just that openness of spirit. And it was so potent and intense and scary. Like, I think a little scary too for me, of like, what is this? Like, like, I feel this connection. I look up at Baba and I feel like now he's like, I see him as like a friend, and like, but also I don't quite get it. I was 15, I was like 16 or 17, like still, growing in so many ways. And we left, we were like, let's keep in touch, all this. We get home, we tell my mom we had a horrible time, we never wanted to go back, like, she's the worst mom in the world. So like, it's still the moody teen, but like, I think she also knew at that time, like, we were like messing, like, she knew that wasn't the truth, like, because she could see the melting. And I wasn't sure I was ever going to go back to the Sahavas the next year. My friend Josie reached out to me and she said, hey, are you going to come back and work as a worker walla? And I said, wow, I made a friend. Like, for me, that was like really like nice, like that feeling that somebody cared about me, which has been like my whole experience of the Baba community, is just people actually care about you. And so we went back as worker wallas, and then it was just like everything all at once. Like, all of a sudden the Band-Aid was completely ripped off. I was like deeply into Baba. I loved being a worker walla, because like, it's pure service. It's like, we are setting up chairs, we're breaking down chairs. There was a flood, so we were literally digging a trench around the art tent, like really physical work. That for me helps me just get out of my head of like who am I, what should I be doing, all this, and really have that purpose and service for Baba. And I like truly can't remember like when the moment was where I just like completely clicked and accepted it for me. But it really started in that realm of service. And I remember like kept going back, and like after like 2 years we watched this video, and in the video Kitty talks about how like if people had like listened when like Muhammad came, or when Krishna came, or when Buddha or when Jesus came, there would be no need for a Mehera Baba, right? But because we still have more to learn and to grow, Mehera Baba came. And for me, that helped kind of, like, I was raised Catholic but not super religious. But it helped, like, just like, I was like, oh duh, like that makes so much sense, like that's such a logical way, like, because like, yeah, we're not perfect yet, we still need more help, like I believe in education and teachers, like we always need more support. And I think for me that was like the final, like I remember that as the moment, the final tide of just like pure acceptance for Baba, like stuck in. And now, like Margi was commenting when she walked into my home, like you can, from wherever you're sitting in my house, you can see at least one picture of Baba. It's usually more like 2 or 3. Like, it is like everywhere, and they're like little pictures and big pictures.
Yeah, it's amazing. You walk in and they're like these little tiny hidden corners. Just, oh, there's Baba again.
I have to remember to tell people who don't know Baba, like when they come into my house, like I imagine it like when I used to go into like my like family members who were very Catholic and they had crucifixes everywhere. I like to think this is like a little like softer, but I do, like I say, yeah, like that's my Baba. Like, we can talk about it if you want, but otherwise just know he makes me happy. Like, that's like, and Baba's just been such a part of my life. I like have continued to do things with the Youth Sahavas, but also to live my mission with him in the world and leave him wherever I go. Like, very practically with the pictures, at my first job, I worked in like a really rigid consulting firm, and I had pictures of Baba all over my office, and people always came and sat in my office, and they would like draw on my whiteboard and like become like all these like very suited up people and I had like "Don't worry, be happy" written like on my whiteboard. And when I left, my colleague was going to be moving into my office, and she asked if she could keep the picture of Baba that was above, where it's Baba's looking up and he's laughing and smiling. It was a black and white little card. And she's not a Baba person, right? in her conscious mind. But she kept that picture there when I left. And I think for me, that's like my relationship with Baba is just like the ease of it after like the initial teenage fight, but just the like pure acceptance, and like he's now my foundation that I don't have to question. And like that feels so freeing to me. Yeah, but that's like my comedic story, but also the real story.
So when Michelle, if you guys ever want to hear the story again, she is on our podcast telling her story. It's a little bit more like in detail and kind of whimsical, I guess. I like this rendition. It was like much more.
It's always different whenever, I mean, I don't know if you all feel this too, whenever you tell your Baba story, there's always like the same kind of context, but like you always get a special twinge with it depending on who you're telling it to.
But so much of what I love about your Baba story is her mom gave her this experience of like, you need to love Baba, and she would actually use Baba's quotes to tell her mom. Can you just tell us that?
So when I was a senior, when I graduated high school, I had gotten from my friend Katie Lawton, had gotten me a Bear Baba Calling book, and in the beginning, in the front of it, she would put like a little heart, and she wrote, just to remember that God is always with you. Like she said, not trying to push on anything on you, just a reminder that God is always with you. And so what I did with that Mehera Baba Calling is when my mom and I would get into a fight, I would go through and I underline the parts of it saying like there's the one where it's like, if you think Baba to be the devil, like say it, like, and I would see like, say, mom, I don't have to pretend to love Baba. He doesn't want me to, he's the devil. And I would like underline other things being like, what, does he want me to die for him? Like things like that, like as like a way to be like, I was really, my poor mother. I was really quite a brat. But it was also like this way of like, I'm not just gonna like blindly accept it. And look, this guy doesn't make me blindly accept it. He says I should say what I want to say and do what I want to do. And but I didn't always say it in the nicest way. But that was my Mehera Baba Calling, which is now it's in like many different pieces. Like it's not in order. It's like falling apart, but I'm not ready to let go of it. I have to put it in a baggie wherever I travel with it.
I love. Oh, it looks like you have. All right, we have Diane and Terry. We've got some questions.
Hi, ladies.
It's so good to see you too.
Good to see you too. I have actually a couple questions.
I'm ready.
One is not for you. It's for that blonde, gorgeous woman sitting next to you. How long are you going to India for?
Till I run out of money. No, I mean, I'm going to try to go for 6 months, but we'll see how it ends up working out.
6 months.
We'll see. I don't know. Now,
the other gorgeous woman who has such an inspirational t-shirt on. I just love it. Thank you so much.
Of course.
My question to you is, how do you work Baba into your daily life?
Yeah.
And are you vocal with other people?
Yeah.
About him and who he is in your life?
Yeah, absolutely.
And my third question is, how can we get more of the people in your generation to come to these evenings?
Yeah, absolutely.
Margi and Peter started it to get a balance.
Yeah, I love that. I'll start with the second question, then I'll go to the third. So I think for me in my daily life, I'm like very visual. So one of the reasons I have pictures of Baba everywhere is so I remember him. And it really is just like when I'm washing dishes, I take his name and like kind of integrate in that way. I also write in a journal almost every night. And when I'm writing as if I'm writing to Baba. Like he's my person. I'm like, telling him about my day or my frustrations, like that is to him. And I have a ring, like a Baba ring too, which is just like very grounding. So in my day when I'm feeling overwhelmed too, I'll like fidget with it or take some deep breaths or say the beloved God prayer. I think the other way, like I am very vocal about my relationship with Baba. I think I'm one of those people who is as you may already be able to tell, like a chronic oversharer. Like I recently had to do like an interview thing for work. It was like a meet Michelle, and it was like, what's one thing people don't know about you? And I was like, ooh, nothing. Like I was like trying to think of like something, and I was like, no, like everybody knows that like so much about me. And that's how I feel about my relationship with Baba. Like I've struggled over the years, especially at the beginning, I would say, like trying to explain it, right? I think I'm like very conscious of of the fact that like anything outside of like kind of the Judeo-Christian like faith, like it's people nervous, right? Like especially like in the US. And so I have had struggles with that, like how do I talk about Baba? And I don't always feel like I still talk about him in the way that like makes it clear how deeply he is like God to me. Like I still, I'm not sure I fully own that all the time, but for the people that like I'm not just meeting at like a one-time thing, like for anybody who I spend more than one moment with, they know that Baba is my God, and we'll talk about it. I talk about it with my students, like not like when they ask about it, right? Like I have like Baba pictures and stuff, and they'll ask and I'll talk about it. I work at a very like progressive school too, so I feel safe talking about it in that environment. Or I'll tell them about the podcast that we do as well too. Like if like one of my favorite things about doing the podcast, like there's so many things about it that was really just came out of like a Baba divine, like, hey, Margi picked up the phone and called me after like years one day. But my cousin's husband, who my cousins are not Baba people, like truly like at all. And her husband, he like has listened to our podcast before, like brought it up when we were at a family wedding. He's like, oh yeah, I've listened to a couple of your episodes of your podcast. Like you guys are so fun. And I just am like, that's so nice. Like I think a lot of the way that like what's so great about Baba is it's not forcing on anybody anything. And that's how I try to live it in my daily life too. Like it's just a part of who I am, just as much as like I'm an educator and a teacher is part of who I am. And then about like the young people thing, I think, you know, I've thought about this a lot because I think about how to get like more like teenagers involved in things too. And I think that part of it is just like, is the continued asking, right? And like you might get one time, right? Or it's like, and I also think it's, I've been thinking a lot about like how we are all at different stages in our lives, regardless of our ages, but also where we are. And so there's going to be times where like young people are going to want to come to something like this all the time. And then there's going to be other times where like life gets chaotic and busy. And so it's like continuing to put in the effort and provide forums for people to connect. But I'm very passionate about like the intergenerational growth of the Baba community. I think that's something that we talk about a lot with like youth Sahavas, young adult Sahavas, but then also like and everybody Sahavas too. And so I don't have any answers, but like those are some of the things that like pop into my head.
Can you share what all of your friends in college used to call Baba?
Oh yeah, they used to call him Mr. Bubbles. I don't know why. Like I guess like the first time I said Mayor Baba, and they'd come in and they'd be like, "Hey, Mr. Bubbles," and like pick up a picture I had of Baba. So he has many names. I do like sometimes I'm like, I really hope people know that I'm not like I like take Baba very seriously. I'm not trying to be sacrilegious when I say these things, but it's also to me like how Baba is such a jokester. Like I feel like all this, my relationship with Baba is completely his joking nature and like how he just likes to mess with me 24/7. But Mr. Bubbles was the name.
All right.
Thank you, Michelle. If I could cut in for one moment,
Yeah.
there is going to be an everyone all ages Savas coming up soon. It's going to be weekend of March 10th, spring cleaning Savas. It'll be like half service, fun type work for the center, cleaning and whatnot, and then half like fun and Savas type stuff,
Yeah.
bonding and couple communal meals. So that's the weekend of March 10th, and it's on the center website if anyone wants to come.
Thank you, Peter.
Wow, thanks, Peter.
I'm so excited about that.
Okay, looks like we've got Ken up next.
Ken and Donna. All right, yeah. Ken.
We got our tech host back.
Hey, good to see you, Michelle.
Good to see you too.
Margi. And number one, I just wanted to say thanks for doing this and thanks for doing your podcast. It's been great listening to them over the last year or so. I was thinking of reading this quote, actually. I don't know if you're familiar with a talk that Francis BabaZoom gave in 1969 after Baba dropped his form. I don't know if I could get through it, actually, but you should look it up because he talks about the young people, you know, and the blessings they have, the people that didn't meet Baba. And when I listened to your podcast, you know, at first I thought like, well, let's see what these young people know, you know. And I was just kind of blown away, like you're just born, you guys are more than banana wallets. I mean, I think you were born with a lot of knowledge and a lot of Baba connection. So
Thank you.
thanks for sharing it.
Thank you.
Margi, I see Margi more than I've seen you, of course. Margi and I have played a lot of volleyball in the last 10 years. Those are the good old days. But, never ceases to amaze me with the wisdom and clarity you guys just have. So looking forward to all the ways you help transform the world around us.
Thank you.
And maybe one silly question.
Please.
Did you ever think about maybe your past life or any insights or fantasies or
Oh,
we don't take it too seriously, but it's fun to have maybe you have something that happens that you think, wow.
Yes, that answer is a yes. I feel like, so I definitely have had like a very intense past life experience in India. And when I went to Mehera for the first time, it was like being thrown back into that life. Like I actually felt like I was like almost living like a dual reality. Like it's like now looking back on it, was such a weird time in my life where I felt like I was understanding Hindi and I was like eating food that like the spice level I could never actually tolerate. Like it was like a really intense experience for me. And
Wow.
it actually, like when I came back, I like decided to try and do a past life regression, which I had a lot of feelings about, because like I feel like sometimes people are like, don't do it. Baba says don't do it. Other times people are like, it's not really what he said. Like, so I was like feeling all these ways, and I tried to do one, and like whether it was like Baba didn't want me to know or my anxiety, like I like could not get to the state. But what the only glimpse I could get was like me running around the kitchens near the samadhi, like where the kitchens are, and I could like see myself like running, like moving things around for Baba. Like I knew that he was there, and he kind of gave a nod. But that was all I was allowed to see. And I think for me, like I know that like I've had a connection with Baba in a past life. I know when I meet people like Margi or like anybody, like I can feel that. And I've read about that, like about like how like for those of us who come to him like now, like and being born like in the younger generations of not having met him, like had that experience. And I feel like for me that was very true. And I'm always curious about the past lives. I want to know more, but like I don't think I'm supposed to right now. Like it's just not in my path. But that one for me was really potent. Yeah.
It's funny, you're always talking about how you're always moving chairs in service to Baba.
A lot of chairs.
Like that's what you were
a
doing.
Lot of moving of a lot of chairs.
All right.
Mega Baba. I'm just we're reading the chat. That's amazing.
All right.
All right. I see Joshua has his hand up. Good
Yeah.
morning. I guess this morning in Australia. Good morning, Joshua. You want to click on mute. There you
go. It's actually afternoon, but that's all right.
Afternoon. That was close. Okay. It's the next day anyway.
Yeah. I think this topic's really interesting because obviously there's a lot of sort of like baby boomer sort of level Baba lovers, and I think Baba even like specifically talked to them about how after he dropped his body, all these jewels were going to come to him, and he specifically talked about that wave of beautiful hippies that came to him, and then so it's interesting that there's sort of like he's much less popular, I guess, in the West at least now. And I was wondering if Michelle, you could maybe speak to that a little bit more, especially considering, like, it's funny, I see that the Youth Sahavas being one of the few sort of events where he sort of really puts on a whole show. Like for some reason, like he really gets very active. I feel like his spirit gets very, very energetically active, and I'm not one to really talk about energy lots normally, but like for some reason for the Youth Sahavas, he puts on the song and dance, and like all these random teenagers just pop up, and he's opening the wine shop.
Yeah, I mean, that is like exactly how I feel like the Youth Sahavas. Like every year I'm like, oh my God, there's gonna be 0 kids, and there's always kids, and I'm like, where did this come from? I think like, you know, what I've been really shocked about, I would say in the past like 3 to 5 years in like my relationship with Baba is like how many new Baba lovers I meet all the time. Like it's like one of these things, like when I like first came to the Youth Sahavas, like it was like the same kind of group of people who were there, like or they knew each other, were all connected. And but like through Zoom and through all this other stuff, I'm like, oh, there's actually like way more people than I thought were involved. And I think it's like what I find is like, and I've connected with people who haven't been to the Youth Sahavas in like many years, but like been reconnecting, like especially in the pandemic, I think reconnected a lot of those when we're all like sitting at home, you kind of like go through your phone book and you're like, okay, who can I call who I haven't called 20 times this week already? Like, and so I started talking to like other Baba folks, like younger people who have been like kind of removed, I would say, from like the active like Baba community. But everybody's living their life with Baba. Like I feel like there's part of that now where it's also like the active living of the life like that you want to lead, and they're bringing Baba in it, right? Like I like my friend Marika's in Kenya, like bringing Baba with her, like all like through like her life, right? Like, and I just like there are so many examples, and I think just like, and I wonder if that's like part of like the changing world and landscape too, is it's less of the gathering in community, like the big mass, you know, when Baba was here, like the big mass darshans, and it's like more of like everybody is like all around doing their thing, and living with Baba, which makes it harder when you're looking for those community connections. And I do think there's work to be done there. But I've thought a lot about like, I just think there are a lot of people who are living with Baba in their lives who aren't like necessarily coming together in the community spaces, and that just might be like where we are. And I think there's more again that we can do with it. I'll just share too, I took a summer class this summer, and I'm actually taking a class with the same professor. We just started tonight, and was talking about Mehera Baba in the class because it was a very like open class, and he was like, we should talk. And like turns out like he had heard about Baba in like the 70s and like was like very like into it for a while, like, you know, and like it was just cool, like a cool like thing where I was like, oh, Baba has had this like widespread reach that like sometimes when you see the same people at all the same things, you forget too. I don't know if that answered at all what you were kind of talking about.
All right. Looks like we got Tony.
There it is, unmuted. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Tony.
I heard a little bit of the podcast. I heard the whole thing on dreams and a little bit of the recent one, and it's really nice to have a whole person to go with the voice. It's nice to meet you. Really enjoying these stories. I don't have a question. I just something you said made me want to share this. When I first came to Baba, I was a student at Queens College. A few months later, I wrote a song called Avatar Mayor Baba Ki Jai, and it was like real catchy. It was Avatar Mayor Baba Ki Jai, and everyone was singing it. They were not Baba lovers. They had no idea what they were singing, but everybody was singing it. And I went on to camp, and I was good friends with this other musical guy on campus. And I came onto campus one day, and he said, play that song. I have a lot of songs. I said, what song? He said, you know, Baba told me to barbecue Jane.
Oh my God.
That's amazing. Whatever gets people saying his name, like I think it works. Like now Jane Brown might not like that song, but I think it works.
I mean, he had a sense of humor, so I don't know how much he was actually taking it.
Yes.
That's what he said.
I love that so much. I think it's so like sweet, like when we can bring Baba in those ways. I think it speaks to like being able to be in safe communities with people too, or like we're like trusting it, you're safe in spaces as well to be like bring up Baba, which for some people like it's just not easy, right? Like there's different reasons why it's not easy, but like I love those like little moments, and then where people then take Baba on their own, like when I brought friends to the center and stuff too, and like we'll go to Shariar on our way out so I can buy something, but really like they want to get like a little like book or card or something. And like I love the little like nuggets that we leave Baba, not as like a preacher we're trying to convert everybody, but like as a just like this might help you too, right? Like this might help you too. And so I think just like spreading that around, I love that story too, and just the different interpretations of Baba. I always have to spell it. Like I always have to say Meher space BABA. Like it's like always, that's like the second question.
Mayor, what is he the mayor of?
Yeah, like exactly. I saw that in the chat. Yeah.
Well, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So I actually have two questions for you. So one is you are so much a part of the Youth Sahavas. And so what drives you to do that? You know, because there's some people who have these really, I know so many people who've had really, really impactful experience at the Youth Sahavas, but they, you know, they're a worker while they're a counselor. But for you, I feel like you have your hand directly and are really passionate about shaping the event. And where does that come from? Or what makes you feel like that's what Baba's really pushing you to do?
Yeah. I feel like for a very long time in my life, especially like the first like 5 years or so I was working at the Youth Sahavas, it was like the best and only thing I had in my life. Like it, like not, it sounds like really depressive about the rest of my life. Like I have a good life, but like it was really the thing I was living for, was for that week in the summer. But I think for me, it's like, I believe so much in the power of young people. And I believe so much in the power of like teenagers specifically. I think teenagers are like the absolute best, and the hardest at times. And like, but they are just what gives me hope. Like I think for a while, they used to have us like just getting to be a part of it and getting to like, also like for me, like I really thrive when I have like a defined purpose in a place in an organization. And like, I really also like to be in leadership. And so like being able to do that. I'm a Leo, like if you're into astrology, like it might not be surprising, but I'm like very much a Leo like energy. But I like having that defined purpose at the Youth Sahavas, and I've wanted to do more. And I wanted to like open it to the people, to like keep opening it up as it has been for me, to like slowly like potentially like open up the gates to Baba for people, like to do that time of melting in like what's such a vulnerable time for so many kids. Like, and I think that that's why I keep doing it. I have to share really quickly is like my last year at my old jobs, this like 5 years ago, I left for the Youth Sahavas, and I told my friend who was new, the one who ended up taking my office in the Baba picture, I said, hey, I'm about to go work at like this, like the Youth Sahavas is like camp thing. Like I always want to quit my job when I come back, but like, just don't worry. Like I never do. Like I'll be like a month of like, I want to quit, whatever. I come back within a week of like the Youth Sahavas, I gave my notice for this job that I've been at for 4 years. Because I just knew it was time. Like it was time for me not to be working in this kind of like corporate space, which I was able to transform in the way I was able to like bring Baba into that space, but to move into working with young people full time, because like I knew that's where Baba wanted me. And she was like, Michelle, you told me you weren't going to do this. She was very upset with me, but she understood. And I was like, I really didn't think. I was driving back actually with my friend, with Jordan, who's sitting next to us on the couch over there, and our friend Ellie. And I remember talking about it, and I was like, oh, this is the time. Like, this is actually the time. And now I get to do that work, more of that work that used to have us work like in my life as well. And just like, I don't know, like teenagers get a really bad rap because they deserve it sometimes, but also they are like these powerhouses of feeling and emotion of like honesty, even when it's really mean. Like, and like, I think that like to be able to like participate and to honor that energy is like, so the work that Baba is calling me to do in this life, and to like help them also know that like they have support and that they're enough. And that's what the Youth Sahavas gave me, was that like, I'm enough. Like I show up as I am. I show up as the angsty, moody teen, and I'm going to be loved unconditionally by the people and by Baba himself, like in those spaces. So that's what drives me for the Youth Sahavas still.
And so would you say that, you know, when you're in like, especially with Baba people, when you're in committee meetings and board meetings, there are a lot of big personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you, like, what's the thing that when the event is happening that you're like, this is all I care about getting through? Like for you, you're willing to forgo a lot of the ego stuff and be like, what's the message I want to get to the actual Youth Sahavas?
I think honestly, on a practical level, part of it is sometimes you need to have your person who you go to, like at the Youth Sahavas. Like I have my people when like we butt heads, which we butt heads all the time. Like I think about how Baba's mandala used to butt heads all the time. Like, I feel like when you're working in direct service for Baba, like you're going to get into it, like, and it's just about the grinding down of that ego. So I've got my people who I can be like, oh, and then we can move on. But I think for me, it's like, especially when you're like in Myrtle Beach, at the Myrtle Beach Center in particular, which is like where my special affinity is, like, it's just all Baba. Like, it's so much easier. Like, I'll go to the Lagoon Cabin and I'll just like, it's like my favorite place to go at Sahavas, like, because like I feel like the kids haven't really discovered it, which I'm okay with, because it's like I get to enjoy it more, but I'll go and have my moment. And just, it's so easy to come back and to reconnect, or to go like throw myself into like a volleyball game or something like that and be like, help redirect. Like, I sometimes wish I had that. Like, actually, I can't even lie, I do have that in my daily life now. Like, when I'm stressed at work or butting heads with somebody, I just go watch the kids doing something. There's something about that reminder of like, we're more than like ourselves and our adult obsessions and our adult like issues too. Like, there's the youthfulness of just like, I don't know, being able to play too. I feel like that's what helps me at the Sahavas, but also just in my life.
I think you told me the story one time of, it was like everything was going wrong as far as the worker wall committee. And it was, I think it was a day it was raining or something. And then you like just went to the Lagoon Cabin and cried.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And, like,
I cry every Sahavas. Baba always does something to me, y'all. Like, he always does. He took my voice one year. Like, I had no voice, like not a shred of a voice. Like, I was not sick at all, like just no voice. I fell. I think that was the year I fell. I was like walking out of the celebration and I just wiped out like over nothing. I was just walking. Like, which is like a very trendy. I am finishing a broken foot injury that I got from falling down a couple stairs. So I was walking and I just fell, and it was after just being so stressed, and I was like, just like taking a break. Like, I was so excited to take a break, and I just fell, and I like crawled from the meeting place to the Lagoon Cabin, like dragging my leg behind me. And I laid down in front of Baba's chair, and I had to lay like on my back because I had a cut on my knee and I didn't want to get it on the floor. And I just was like, why, Baba? I was like, what the heck is this supposed to be? And like, it's just the like only answer is like everything. Like, you're supposed to give me everything. Like, like, and I remember that it must have not been a celebration, it must have been something else, because I remember that was the year that I threw into the Dooney, like, I don't know, just take it all. Like, I was just like, which is very bad to do maybe in a Dooney. Like, I'm pretty lucky. It wasn't horrible ramifications after that. But I was like, it was this just like, sometimes like, it's just like, I feel in the best way beaten down by him to order to like be lifted back up. But it's never really beaten down. It's just like of myself. It's like the ego or the part of me that wants to control or wants to even try to please him in a way that's not actually just trying to love him. Another Michelle.
Yeah, we have Michelle and Marvin.
Hi. I have a question. And by the way, I'm Aaron Schaefer's mom. You probably don't know that, Michelle, but anyway. Yeah. Anyway, sightings of Baba at Sahavas. Please discuss.
Oh man. So this is my biggest frustration with Baba right now. Not right now, but as you bring up that question, I am not a visual like sighting of Baba person, right? Like that. I feel like there are people like, and maybe you're one of those people, and I'm really jealous. I mean, I'm not at all. I'm really, it's healthy. But I'm like who just like see Baba, like that is like a thing. But I had this moment. I promise I'll answer your question. But I had this moment in the Samadhi when I went for the first time, and I hated it. I was like, it was the most chaotic experience for me. I got yelled at because I tried to bring a bag in, and then I got yelled at because I stepped on the threshold. I didn't know you weren't supposed to because I was by myself. And it was like, not yelled at, like somebody was just like, don't do that. And I took it as like yelling. I was by myself, and I was like one of the worst like things. I was like ready for this big experience. Like, everybody's like, your life will change when you go into the Samadhi. And I did. It made me more anxious. And so I went to the little, I don't know what's called, the yellow hut, like next door. And I like to the Samadhi, like, and like
the tin
cabin, where like the stretcher is and like all of that. And so I went and I sat in there, and I just was like, Baba, like, why don't you come to me like you come to other people? Like, why didn't I have this vision of you coming and like kissing my head in the samadhi that I had dreamed about? And at that moment, a woman walked in and she was sitting, and she had been sitting in there with me actually for like a few moments. And at that moment, I was like, why don't you do this? I got this clear message from Baba that he said, I come to you through other people. And she walked over, this woman, I've never met her before in my life. And she looked at me and she like asked for like some sort of consent. She was like, is this okay? And I was like, I don't know what's happening, but sure. And she just placed her hand on my head and like closed her eyes for a moment and then walked out. And I was like, wow, that was really like Baba. That was Baba. Like that just like was him coming to me. And I saw her later, like the next day in the food line. And she came up to me and she was like, I'm really sorry. Like, I have never done that before. Like, I am not a person who comes up and touches people. Like, I just like had to, like, Baba was like, you have to go and give her a blessing, like right now. And it was one of those like insane life moments. So all that to say, I haven't seen Baba in that way at the Youth Sahavas, like of like the, like seeing him walking on the path, but he is so there in the people. And I think that for me, like, I feel it right now, like looking at your faces and seeing your names, like he is so evident in there in the people. And I see him in the kids, especially the kids who come in who have never heard about Baba. Like I see him and his like youthful playfulness in them as they like continue to like try and get to know somebody new, or as they like throw themselves into like, you know, something different. And I think that those are like the times for me, like I just see him in those little moments, right? All in my community. I don't know about you. Have you ever had like a Baba sight or like?
Yeah. So I don't know if I see Baba inwardly a lot, you know, sort of like in your inner sight. But this past Youth Sahavas, I was sitting in the Dooney and I was kind of like, I can't cry because I had all these. There was one point where I had like 5 campers laying on top of me at the Dooney all crying, and I was like, I gotta hold it together right now. But I look at the Dooney, and all of a sudden, every single one, the campers or counselors or staff, whatever, who took darshan, it was Baba. Mm-hmm. And it was, I saw Baba bowing down to himself at the Dooney. But it wasn't just like my inner sight of seeing, oh, I can see Baba in everybody. It was, no, these people became Baba. And he was like in reverence bowing down to the Dooney. And it was so amazing because I was like, it was this macro to the micro kind of moment of like, wow, we think that we're just making this Dooney that's beautiful and in reverence Baba, but it's like Baba in us is actually giving us the opportunity to bow down to his feet. It was, but I think that's my only.
That's a big only.
It was a big. Needless to say, I did cry like the rest of the campers who were on top of me at that moment.
Amazing.
It was quite.
I just had this moment when you were talking where I'm like, I'm so used to Margi and I when we record over the phone, like for our podcast, and like we haven't seen each other. This is like the first time, like
I think probably like 5 years,
maybe more. Yeah. Like, and I'm like, I just had this moment where I'm like it's like your voice that I'm so used to, but it's your body. Like it's so weird. Very like, I'm like, what's happening? I feel a little in a dream state in this moment.
It's so funny too. So when on the first episode of the podcast, I talk about a little bit, we talk about how it kind of came to be, but basically I was listening to all these podcasts because I was kind of going through my own doctrine of the soul. And I was thinking to myself, man, I wish somebody would start a Baba podcast. Until finally Baba got it through my hard head that he was telling me to make a Baba podcast. And then I was like, well, I can't do it alone because what am I going to just talk
about? You also wanted a Baba podcast that like had all the things you wanted to be talking. Like you wanted a Baba podcast that like talked about the topics that you wanted to talk about.
That I wanted somebody else to make a Baba podcast about like everything that I was experiencing. And so I was like, okay, Baba, who am I going to do it with? And then I just kind of like gave it to him and like loud and clear, I got Michelle McKeever. And I was like, I haven't talked to Michelle McKeever since she was my counselor at the Not that we haven't, like we've always
like on Instagram
we've always been close, but it was like acquaintances. And I called her up and I was like, I've got a really weird question to ask.
I was like, I literally like remember like getting her text and being like texting other people being like, Margi just reached out to me. Is she okay? Like, I didn't know what was going on. And when she asked to do a podcast, I was like, I guess, yeah. Like, this feels like a Baba thing.
But I remember too, you had just told your therapist like a week before.
Oh yeah, I wasn't allowed to commit to anything new. I promised my therapist I would not take on anything. I was like, no. And I was like, I'm going to say no to everything because I'm too overworked. I was in grad school and working. And the next therapy session, I was like, so I started a podcast. And she's used to that by now.
Michelle, just like you weren't going to quit your job.
I mean, just like apparently when I say I'm not going to do something, all right, I'm going to say now, I'm not going to get a boyfriend this year. It's not going to happen.
Somebody just messaged me and said, what's the name of the podcast? And it's called God in the Real World, if anybody wants to find it.
But it has a picture of Baba.
Yeah, it's like a Baba painted as Krishna.
Yeah. We're not here to obviously to plug the podcast, but it is pretty fun. If you enjoy hearing the banter that we have now, if you don't, I understand it, but don't listen to the podcast.
Well, so we're kind of getting towards the end. So I have 2 questions for you, unless anybody else has any questions. Oh, somebody's got their hand up. We'll take that question first. All right. Whoever the phone number is that's there. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
This is Wayne Myers in Eugene, Oregon.
Hi, Wayne.
I'm on the phone. Hi, Michelle. We've met on.
Yes, I know. It's nice to hear your voice.
Yeah, I just had to be here. I don't get on Late Night Chat Live very often, but when I saw the email, I just had to be here. I'm so glad I did. I love the band. Jay Baba. Okay, one last question. How's your cat?
Okay, she is so good. I wish she was here right now, but we yelled at her for scratching to her. Are you gonna go grab her?
I'll go get her, yeah.
We're gonna grab her. Although you're on the phone, so you might not be able to see her, but everybody else does.
That's okay. I'm going to watch the recording later.
Oh, perfect. I hated cats. I think, Wayne, you might know this. I might have told you this. I hated
It was
cats.
there around the time you got the cat. That's why I asked.
And I got this stupid cat who's the love of my life. Her name is Hope. She's a Baba cat. I got her during a holiday Sahavas 2 years ago. We just had our 2-year anniversary this week. And her name is Hope. Her formal name is Hope Adobalope on a rope, but she just goes by Hope. And she doesn't like to be held, but she is the sweetest. Like, she is a Baba gift to me. Like, you know, Baba talked about like pets and animals a lot, and I never got it. I didn't understand. Like, I was not an animal person, and now I get it. And so I'm very grateful. Yeah. So thank you, Wayne. You know, I love talking about her.
And I love your taste in music very much. Jay Baba. Thank
you, Jay Baba.
Jay Baba. Okay, so my question for you.
Yeah.
So obviously your relationship with Baba has changed since you first heard of Baba. I think you're like on the extreme spectrum of how people's relationship changes. And so where would you say now, of course it's going to evolve, but right now, where have you landed?
I think I'm at this place where Baba is just the foundation of everything. Like, it's just, he is like etched into my bones, like built into my blood, like into my heart, like that he is just the absolute foundation. And sometimes that can feel like I'm not actively doing enough to like nurture my relationship with him. But what I've been really working on accepting is like, it's just because he is me, like, and I am him. Like, it's just, we are just so one that sometimes it doesn't feel like how it felt at the beginning when I really started to like love him. Like, it felt exciting and new and all that. It's just, he is me, or is in me. And really, like, I love the idea of like the etching on my heart too. It's just, he like looked at it, just says Baba all over it.
Yeah, signature.
Yeah.
So my last question, if you guys haven't heard the podcast, whenever we have guests on, this is Michelle's question that she came up with. It's kind of become like our running theme to ask people and to ask ourselves sometimes.
Also, if you want to become a guest before you do this, if you want to ever talk on our podcast, we'd love to have people. So please let us know.
Yeah, we do want guests. So if you want to tell your Baba story, message either of us.
Yeah,
we want you on there. But so she started asking all guests, and it's the most beautiful question. So Michelle, what is your message of hope to everybody?
My message of hope is that we get to choose to play and to have fun and to be silly and to push each other on the swings at a park at any moment in our lives, no matter our age or who we are. And so my message of hope is that we just get to choose to have fun and enjoy and play.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So I am just overjoyed to see you all too. It feels really sweet, like names that I've seen or heard and new faces and everything. Like I feel very honored. I told Margie I go to bed usually at 9:30 every night. But I feel like now like she like knew she was gonna get me, and now I'm gonna like have to be back. So I will definitely be back. But I'm just really grateful that you all wanted to even hear me talk. So thank you. Appreciate you.
Thanks for coming on, Michelle.
And please do come on our podcast. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, email us. My email is margaret.connor1998@gmail.com. And then
I'm just gonna type mine because I can't remember yours.
I'll put it in the chat. So if you guys want to tell your stories
or just want to chat,
yeah, or if you have a Baba topic you really love, reach out. Well, on that note, so I guess let's just close with a moment of silence, and then we'll finish with an avatar, Mehera Blum.